Guys, like, comment, subscribe, share the video, especially if you love college football as much as I do. Before I talk about how I think Florida State could still beat Georgia, I'm going to admit I'm not picking Florida State to win this game anymore. They have too many starters out. But you forget Norvell has done a really good job in recruiting the last few years. And I'm not talking about this year's recruiting class for the 2024. I'm talking about before that. He's recruited a lot of defensive linemen. So even without Verse, and possibly Fisk, I didn't see anything about him. He probably will play. But if he doesn't, they still got a lot of defensive linemen. And you guys forget, Florida State's had over 40 sacks this year. It's not all because of Verse. And if anything, they've rotated a lot of bodies on that defensive front. So they still can be able to get a lot of pressure and will get pressure on Georgia's Carson Beck. If you look at Georgia's numbers, yes, their offense is good, but outside of Alabama, whose defense did they really play all year? That gave them any kind of challenge? Nobody. And I have noticed Carson Beck does like to throw that football into coverage quite a bit, and he hasn't really paid for it. Florida State still has one of the best pass defenses in America, and I don't think anybody in that secondary is sitting out. So that's good for Florida State. For Florida State to win this game, they got to get pressure, which they will. That pass defense has got to be lights out, which I think it will be. And Florida State's offense they don't need to be great. It doesn't need to be great. Norvell's a really good coach, by the way. I'm going to take you back to last year's LSU game when they won by a point. They managed to win time of possession. They managed to convert third down when they needed to. They managed to take care of the football, which is what Florida State's the best in the country, and by the way, at not turning the ball over. And again, Florida State's offensive line has never been great, but it's been pretty good. So I expect them to protect whoever plays quarterback pretty well. And Georgia's defense has not been dominant in this year like it has been in the past, obviously. So for Florida State to win, you got to continue not turning the ball over. You have to get pressure on Carson Beck and make him make bad decisions. You have to get sacks. You have to force. I do believe Florida State's defense is good enough to force at least 1 to 2, maybe 3 turnovers if they're lucky off a tip pass. Because Carson has had some questionable decisions and throwing the football in the traffic, and nobody's made him pay for it because the defenses, to be honest, that Georgia has played all year have not been very good outside of Alabama. So I don't think Florida State defensively is going to change very much without Jared Verse just because they had a whole lot of defensive linemen to be rotated throughout the year. So, in my honest opinion, it is a big risk, big loss for Jared Verse not playing, but not as big as everybody's making it out to be. So, technically, Florida State can win this game. I still think they can. I just don't expect them to because, yes, Florida State does have a lot of talent there regardless, and Norvell's done a phenomenal job in recruiting receivers. And they do have some good tight ends outside of Jaheim Bell. But I just don't see them being able to put it together for the last few weeks. And Georgia, unfortunately, it also has a really good defense. And their offense is very explosive. So, score prediction, I got Georgia. I don't think it'll be a blowout, to be honest, because Florida State does have a lot of talent, too. And Norvell's a really good coach, so that probably won't happen. And again, they're the best in the country at not turning the ball over. That's something Florida State didn't do without Jordan Travis. Those 2 games, they didn't turn the ball over. So I don't expect them to do it here either. I just don't think Florida State will be able to generate enough offense to win the game. Give me Georgia 24-14. Maybe 31-14 they pull away late. But it should be a really good game. It should be a watchable game. I do expect Georgia to show up and be ready to play and to knock off the top 5 undefeated conference champions. So why not? But now Florida State can win the game. They very well can. So that's how. Turnover battle. You got to get pressure on Carson Beck, which if anybody has been able to do it, which I have seen, you got to make him pay for it. Florida State's pass defense, I don't think anybody in that secondary is sitting out, so that's good. You forget about that. And again, Florida State just doesn't turn the ball over. And if they can consume clock and keep that defense off the field and keep Georgia's defense on the field and make some explosive plays. By the way, Florida State's good at explosive plays. They did that. That's how Norvell's offense became known. Explosiveness. So they will be able to do something. But I just don't think they can win.